Sweet. I've never presented at this kind of sweet AV setup before. So I'm here to talk to you about Ember on Heroku. Who here has not heard of Heroku before or is not familiar with it? Oh, wow, so I can probably just sit down. So I'm Terence. I go by Hone02 on Twitter. This is the picture I use in all the talks I give. It was done by a former coworker of mine. I think it's pretty good. I organize a conference in town with a few other people called Keep Ruby Weird. If you do Ruby things, definitely recommend you come out and check it out. It's a pretty good time. I think we're supposed to be doing one this year around about the same time. I also work at Heroku, like I said before. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to join in on this lightning talk deployment track. And I guess to really start off with this talk, if you're not familiar with build packs, they're kind of the special code that gets run to take the code that you give to Heroku and make it runnable on Heroku to be run on the dynos. So I'll be referencing a few different build packs. So this is there to just kind of get you information on what that is. And to start, really, if you are deploying Ember stuff on Heroku today, you're probably using Tony Coco's Heroku build pack that he wrote, which is actually really, really amazing. If you go and set that as the build pack and then you push to Heroku, it goes and runs it on Nginx, which is great for serving static assets, which is awesome for Ember. You can set the number of Nginx workers you're using. It has API proxying support, and it does all these great things that are really good for Ember developers. So you're probably wondering well, why am I up here talking about deploying to Heroku? And I actually went and have been working on this other open source build pack that I've been playing around with at Heroku, and I was working a lot with Tom Dale on it. And one of the big reasons why I was working on it was if you've been following some of the recent developments in Ember in the last, say, 2 years, they've been talking about FastBoot. And for those of you who aren't familiar, FastBoot's this ability to kind of render your Ember apps on the server side. And if you're thinking about that, that means that you have to be able to run your code on some type of backend server. So running this on Nginx doesn't really work out. So I think this is the part where I play a video. Does this work? Oh, how do I obviously don't want to play the whole keynote. What am I?
Can you press left?
Left. Sorry. Isn't this at 33? I want to get it up to 42, so it needs to be forward more.
3230?
4230. So this is Tom kind of at EmberConf in the opening keynote.
When I deploy the FastBoot website, I'm just going to push to Heroku. So for Heroku, I've been working very closely with Terence Lee, and he's been doing some really awesome work to make the experience of deploying an app from Ember to Heroku really fast, really easy, really reliable. So this is sped up 3 times, by the way, if you didn't get installed.
What did I do? So I also don't know how to use a Mac, so that's also a thing. So I don't know if you guys were able to read that, probably not. But the steps that you need to actually deploy an app on Heroku using the thing that Tom was demoing, so that was at the opening keynote at EmberConf this year, is you create a Heroku app, which most of you are probably familiar with, and then you need to set a Heroku build pack, and that's the URL for that. And then all you have to do is git push Heroku master, and you should be able to deploy your Ember app. So pretty simple, 3 steps. And you don't have to kind of remember all that stuff, that long URL. If you just go to heroku.com/ember.js, it has all that information there for you that you can copy and paste. The Ember.js build pack is actually made up of a bunch of different build packs, and you don't have to do any of this stuff, but this is just kind of an FY information-wise. So at first we use the Node.js build pack, which is the official Heroku Node.js build pack, where we pay someone who actually maintains and does the support for that. And then there's this Ember CLI deploy build pack that I've built that kind of does a bunch of the grunt work under the hood. So initially, the Node.js build pack goes through and sets up the Ember CLI toolchain. So the Ember CLI tools that you're used to having locally are now being set up on Heroku for you. And then obviously we need to set up and install Bower as well. And then in the Ember build pack, we actually go and run Bower install for you, so you don't have to go and remember to do any of that stuff and like post install hooks. We cache it for subsequent builds, and then we also know when stuff changes to also flush the cache, so you don't get into weird like caching errors by things not updating because of Bower not being great at managing caches. We also build the Ember assets, so we run your Ember build for you. Then we go through, and for FastBoot specifically, we will install any of the FastBoot specific dependencies. So if you're building a FastBoot app, you might have some specific FastBoot NPM dependencies, which are separate from your original package.json that are in your Ember app. So we go ahead and do that and manage the cache for that as well. And then we set up the FastBoot CLI, which you need to use to run your FastBoot web app as a node server. And so given all that, you can now get your app up and running. So it does all that for you. And that's really all there is to getting like a Ember FastBoot app up and running on Heroku, and you don't really have to do any of that stuff. If you just follow the instructions on heroku.com/ember.js, like it does all that for you. So most of you probably aren't actually building a FastBoot app. Like FastBoot has only recently gotten like to a more stable point where people can start to build things, and you're probably developing a normal Ember app. And I actually just copy and pasted the slide I had before and pasted here because the instructions are exactly the same as before. So no matter if you have a FastBoot app or an Ember app, you literally just do the same thing. Create a Heroku app, set the build pack, and push to Heroku. And with that, we actually add an additional build pack, and this is all handled by the Ember.js build pack itself, so you don't actually have to do any of this. But we set up this static build pack. And this is something I've also been working on. And what this is basically a way for you to configure Nginx using JSON. And under the hood, by default, we just generate this simple JSON file that configures it. This is just to help you get up and running. So by default, we specify a root directory where all the assets are being served from. So normally, when you're just running Ember build, that's the dist directory. So we fill that in for you. And then we set up like the HTML5 push state routing that you need to kind of get those nice URLs and not have to use the kind of pound whatever stuff that you have to do if you don't have that stuff set up. And so you get all this out of the box. You don't have to write it. But if you do want to do that, you can go to this GitHub URL and see all the different configuration options that you have. So the stack.json file allows you to also add stuff like proxying, force HTTPS, do custom routing, add headers, and things like that. And so you can add and extend this beyond just the normal thing, which is really nice as you start to productionize your app. And in addition, there's also Ember CLI deploy. So this is a great way, if you're not familiar, for just like customizing the build pipeline and deployment pipelines for your Ember app. And so we actually respect that for the build pipeline to allow you to configure your app. So say you want to gzip your assets or you want to upload your assets to S3, you can easily just plug in and do this normal thing that you would with Ember CLI deploy, and Heroku will just go ahead and run that. So instead of running Ember build, we'll actually run Ember deploy production. So if you use Ember CLI deploy build, it will then build your assets. And then as you hook in and do stuff in that pipeline, we'll just respect and do all that stuff because Ember CLI deploy kind of does all that stuff for you. And so really, at the end of the day, the things that I wanted to get out of this was I wanted to have a fast, easy, reliable way to do deploys for your Ember app. And it doesn't really matter what your Ember app is. It can be a FastBoot app, it can be a normal Ember app, you can use Ember CLI deploy. I really want to be able to target like every Ember app and have the same kind of deploy experience from beginning to end. So that's really all I had. If you go to heroku.com/ember.js, you can find instructions on how to use it. I'd love to get feedback on it. It's still pretty early in its days, and yeah, go ahead, try it, and let me know how it goes. All right, thanks.